Hi, my name is Dr. Christy Sadreameli, and I'm an assistant professor of pediatrics and a pediatric pulmonologist at Johns Hopkins. The home environment can be an important factor in asthma symptoms, as it is where children spend a lot of their time. Previous studies have shown that mouse sensitization and home exposure is associated with increased asthma symptoms and exacerbations, particularly for children living in urban environments who are majority low income and from ethnic and racial minority groups. Mouse allergen is a really common exposure in homes in Baltimore City and other cities in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. Therefore, it can be a major factor in asthma morbidity in these environments. A study called the Mouse-Allergen and Asthma Intervention Trial, or MAAIT for short, was a randomized clinical trial done in children ages 5 to 17 with asthma living in Baltimore or Boston and sensitized and exposed to mouse in their home. MAAIT tested whether an intensive pest management intervention was effective to improve asthma outcomes compared with a control group who received education alone. MAAIT was designed and carried out by a group of talented researchers, including one of my mentors, Dr. Elizabeth Matsui. Something interesting about MAAIT is that there were widespread reductions in mouse allergen amounts across the study, regardless of the study group assignment. And mouse allergen reduction was associated with improvement in a variety of asthma outcomes, including symptom and exacerbation outcomes. With my mentor, Dr. Matsui, I performed a secondary analysis of MAAIT to determine if other factors in the home were associated with greater or lesser improvements in asthma outcomes in response to mouse allergen reduction. For our secondary analysis, we combined the two groups, control and intervention, since mouse allergen levels and asthma outcomes did not differ between the two groups. We studied three factors in order to determine whether they modified the clinical response to reduction in mouse allergen. These factors were baseline or starting level of mouse allergen at study entry, level of particulate matter 10 microns or smaller, PM10, a measure of indoor air quality, and sensitization and exposure to other common indoor allergens, such as cat, dog, dust mite, cockroach, things like that. Exposures in homes were measured at study entry 6 months and 12 months, and outcomes were measured by phone calls interviewing study participants, and these included exacerbations and day and nighttime symptoms. We found that higher baseline levels of mouse allergen in the home were associated with greater improvements in many asthma outcomes in response to mouse allergen reduction. So starting at a higher level of allergen had higher benefit than starting at a lower level of mouse allergen. Lower levels of PM10 were associated with greater response to mouse allergen reduction as well. And finally, sensitization and exposure to other indoor allergens did not appear to have a significant impact on the clinical benefit seen with mouse allergen reduction. We concluded that mouse allergen reduction was still very helpful, even if mouse allergen levels were very high to start with, in fact, possibly even more beneficial for these children. And we also concluded that PM10 would be an area to consider targeting in future multi-pronged intervention studies. Finally, sensitization and exposure to other indoor allergens not having an effect on the clinical response to mouse allergen reduction was kind of interesting because it means even if children have other allergies and exposures, focusing on mouse may still be quite helpful for them. Thanks for listening, and I'd like to thank my mentor, Dr. Matsui, the MAAIT co-investigators, the study participants, and of course, my coworkers in the Division of Pediatric Pulmonology.